Hello, my name is Jennifer Lewis, and I will be discussing today steps and strategies on teaching vocabularies to ELLs, also known as English language learners. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation. This is an overview of today's presentation. The lesson outcomes for today would be new strategies for teaching vocabulary, learning ways to build confidence and make learning fun, how to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of all students, how to increase ways for students to communicate with non-native English-speaking peers and English-speaking peers, and finally, I will summarize the lesson by letting your ELL's voices be heard and giving you strategies on what we can do to be advocates for our English language learners. Sit back and relax and enjoy the presentation. First, let's discuss strategies that work. In order to have successful lessons for ELLs, you first must provide reasons for teaching vocabulary. Most students will not be interested if there are no reasons tied to the lesson. When teaching vocabulary, it's very important to make a connection with the students. Try to explain with a personal story or give personal examples of vocabulary that you are teaching. By doing so, you can use visuals or cartoons. Many students at the high school level love visuals and they love cartoons. You would not think so because it's often elementary to use cartoons or even to use visuals. But I've learned that students from different countries get thrilled when you tell them to use pictures or flashcards or even draw cartoons related to the vocabulary that you are teaching. Also, another great strategy is while reading a piece of literature or a story, it's great to have the students highlight vocabulary words that are unknown to them in the text as you read. By doing so, it allows students to go back to the highlighted words and have you, the teacher, read them over to them, and you can go back and provide reasons and explanations related to the story. You can also have students create graphic organizers. There are many graphic organizers or foldables that you can experiment with that cater to your audience. First, you can have the student write the word in English, draw a picture, and perhaps find the word in their native language, and finally, they can define the word. By doing this, there's several opportunities for learning the word. You can also use implicit and explicit instructions. A lot of my students like explicit instructions because it also goes back to number one. It gives a reason. It provides a definition, an explanation. Sometimes I write the word on the board and I let them decide what the meaning is by looking at the word, the way it's placed in the context, or maybe use background knowledge or prior knowledge to define the word. Or I can basically write the word on the board and give them the English definition, plain and simple. We also use something that is called a word wall. By using a word wall, the students are able to go back during the course of the lesson and refer to the word because it's right there in their face. But we've gone through all the other steps of defining the word first. But the word is just placed on the word wall, something for them to refer back to. When teaching ELLs new vocabulary, you want to build their confidence. You want to let them know that it's okay, that learning new information is not a bad thing, and learning new words can only help them in their future. You may ask, how can I build confidence in my ELLs and create an environment that helps them feel safe and secure in taking risks? First, you can try warm-ups. You can give the word as part of the lesson and add a story or have them write a journal or use the word in maybe, or like I said in one of the first couple of slides, you can use the word in a cartoon or a skit. This will get the kids warmed up and make them feel good about trying to figure out what the word means. Also, they can activate their prior knowledge. Or you can have students talk at their tables. They can turn to their partner, table partner, or their shoulder partner and tell them what they think the meaning is before the lesson even starts. Third, you can have the student think, pair, and share. They can think about what the word means for about 2 minutes while listening to some very calming or relatable music. And then, after they think about it, they can turn to their neighbor and share. They can take turns discussing. This lowers the affective filter and allows the students to speak in a small group setting before they speak out loud with the teacher. Another confidence builder is role play. The students are allowed to be someone they're not. They can choose the word, discuss it, find out how it relates to them, and maybe they can dress up, or they can pretend like a teacher, or they can get up and teach the lesson and pretend like they're me. Or the students can get up and act it out with each other. It's always great to incorporate culturally unique vocabulary in the lesson. I often ask my students words in their native language to help them relate to words in English. I may teach them a word in English, and they may teach me a word in Spanish. And together we combine the words and find uniquenesses and likenesses in the word. And it makes the student happy to learn the new word because they can say, oh, I learned what this word is. It's just like in Spanish when we learn this word. How to differentiate instruction. You may have several different groups of students in your room, all on different levels. Tier 1 students, they may have gaps in education and are working below the level expected at the marker set by the teacher. For example, at 9 weeks after you assess, you may realize that this group of students needs a little bit more. Tier 2 students are at mid-level. They are right on target for expectations set by the teacher. Tier 3 students have clearly exceeded expectations and are working at becoming mainstream students. Once you've differentiated your students and figured out how you're going to differentiate the lesson, you can give one group of students on Tier 1 possibly the lower level sight words. You can give the Tier 2 students mid-level sight words, and you can give Tier 3 students sight words maybe above grade level. This is how you can keep the activities in the class moving and going, and everybody learns at their own pace. All words are different and all words are harder, especially if there's no background knowledge or the kids have no experience or gaps in education. Differentiating instruction, part 2. There are several ways you can group students, as I said in the previous slide. You can always try the buddy system. You can pair a weak person with a stronger person. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't, as the weak person may be totally reliant on the strong person. But there are times when the strong person knows his or her role and they sort of act like maybe a tutor or someone that can motivate the weak student to learn once again at a rate that they're comfortable with, but also motivate them to push themselves. Group work. I find that group work is very good when you give a project or when you're trying to get students to learn a new lesson, especially in history or science. Grouping students allows each person in the group to have a role. You have roles such as the leader who oversees. You have a timekeeper who makes sure that everybody's on task and everything is running according to the schedule. Then you have a scribe. This person may act as the person that writes. They may have great penmanship. They'll be the one that writes down everything that's gathered by the group, which leads me into the information gathering. If I'm giving the group a set of new vocabulary words and I'm telling the group that I need you to come up with a theme or a poster related to all your words, the person that's going to write will write the words for the group. The information gatherer will look up the definition of the words in English and the native language of everyone in the group. The web designer may want to create a PowerPoint, such as the one I've created, and make it easier for the class or for me, the instructor to follow along after the scribe has written everything down. By giving everyone a role, this allows each member to be active in the process, and it holds everyone accountable. Heterogeneous grouping. You often may group stronger students together that may have the same learning style and group weaker students together that may have the same learning style. This is not a negative thing. This is all encouragement, and it all helps students learn at a different rate. Now, allowing students to use vocabulary. Students should always be encouraged to use the vocabulary they are learning. Here are some ways students may do so. Just as I stated earlier with the warm-up, give students prompts and sentence starters. Don't just throw the word out there at them. You have to motivate them. You have to give them examples of what you're expecting. Step away from the desk and walk around to get students involved. That's what the teacher needs to do. The teacher needs to walk around and provide motivation, provide encouragement, provide extra support, language support in case the student is having trouble. Oftentimes, the Spanish-English dictionary is very confusing. It does not always give a definition. It usually just gives the translation. Students should not be left in the cold to wonder what the word means. Also, allow students to join clubs at school, the science club, the art club, the music club. Do not just limit those clubs to English speakers. Spanish speakers are known for wanting to join the Spanish club, but oftentimes they shy away from joining because they feel like all the students just speak English. That's not the case. The students are welcomed into the Spanish club because they bring in a variety, they bring in unique ideas. Also, give students roles and responsibilities in the classroom. This will have students using words that they'll feel comfortable with taking risks with vocabulary that they've learned in the classroom from the teacher, such as when I get ready on Monday morning to write my goals and objectives, the students will often remind me, Miss, what are our goals and objectives for the day? They're already encouraged to use the vocabulary that's right there in the classroom around them. Also, encourage students to attend school-sponsored activities such as pep rallies and talent shows. This allows students to meet a lot of English-speaking peers, non-native English-speaking peers. The students will get to know them. They won't feel pressured. They'll listen. They'll be active listeners. They'll be active responders. And they'll be encouraged to go above and beyond as ELLs. Finally, let your voices be heard. We should encourage all of our students to let their voices be heard, whether they're speaking in their native language or they're speaking in English. The only way they're going to feel comfortable and safe in their environment is if they're allowed to make mistakes and if they're allowed to jump out there and just use the vocabulary that they're learning at the pace they are learning. And in closing, there are many resources out there for individuals that are teaching ELLs. Vocabulary is very strong and it's very needed, especially in high school and college. So I encourage you all today to look up the resources that I've given you, take a chance, try these strategies, and hopefully your ELLs will be strong, they'll come out strong, and they'll be ready to go out into the world and be successful. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.